Ms. Peterson, you should have already have read the textbook pages 18 to 23. If you haven't done so already, please stop this video and go back and make sure you read those pages. Now, if you have read textbook pages 18 to 23 in your science textbook, you should have learned about the different types of skills that scientists use. Now that we've read about those and learned a little bit about them, we're going to summarize those types of skills that scientists use in a 3-column chart. You're going to need to turn to page 2 in your science notebook. I'm going to wait 1 second to give further instructions to make sure that you have a pencil and your science notebook ready. Okay, awesome. Now that you have your science notebook and your pencil ready, you can see here on my notebook paper that I've created a 3-column chart, and it is broken up into everyday science skills, investigation skills, and then math and science skills. So pause this video and copy down the chart in your science notebook just like you see it on mine. Okay, if you have your chart ready, then we're going to get going. While reading about the everyday science skills that scientists use, you should have read about 4 different everyday science skills. The first skill that scientists use every day is that they observe. And make sure you're copying this down with me. Now, when scientists observe, just like us, they use their 5 senses just to observe the many things around them. So that's all that it is they use 5 senses, they use their 5 senses to observe. So I'm actually going to make this a number 1 because that's the first thing that one of the things they do. Another everyday science skill scientists use is they infer. Now we're going to learn a lot about inferring this year, but inferring is when scientists think about their observations and think about how things work. So we're just going to say scientists infer how things work by thinking, and that's a key word because they always think about their observations. Now we're not going to write notes for all of these, but there are a few that we will. Another thing that scientists do every day, and we actually do this every day too, is they communicate. So now when scientists communicate, they are sharing their results and inferences with other scientists. So they share their results with other scientists. Now, the last everyday skill that scientists use is they compare. And just like us, we compare things about how they're like and different. That's what they do as well. They compare how things are alike and different. So those are the 4 everyday science skills that a scientist uses. Now, scientists also conduct investigations. So when they're conducting an investigation, they use skills specifically for that. So the first thing that, not necessarily the first thing, but one of the things that scientists use for their investigation skills is they predict. And simply, they just use observations and existing research to make those predictions. So use observations and research to predict. Another investigation skill they use variables. Now we're going to learn a little bit more in depth about variables throughout the year, but a variable is simply just something that a scientist changes in an experiment. So this is something changed in an experiment. Another thing they do is they plan and conduct investigations. And that just means that they're thinking about how they want to conduct this investigation, and then they do it. Scientists also hypothesize. And when they hypothesize, they think of a testable statement. So something that they're going to test in their investigation or their experiment. I'm going to say question/statement. And then also when scientists use their investigation skills, they draw conclusions. Which means they use their evidence from the investigation or experiment, and they evaluate their hypothesis. So they draw conclusions, and they do that they use evidence to evaluate a hypothesis. And at any point in this video, I should have said this earlier, if you need to, you can just pause it to copy down the notes as well. Okay. Now the last set of skills that scientists use is they also use math and science skills. These ones we're not really going to write notes for. I'll explain them a little bit. But one set of skills they use over here is that they classify, which means they like group things. And then they classify them by putting them in groups, and then they order. So classify and order. Another thing that scientists use when doing math and science is they measure. And there's different things and different ways that they can measure things. Maybe they're finding the length or the width, the height, maybe the mass of an object. They also use numbers, which that could be by counting or measuring. They also use the numbers to compare and order. There's two more. They use time and space relationships. And that means like you can determine certain things like time and space. You can like use stopwatches and clocks to tell the time, or you can predict when it will be high tide or low tide. So that's using time and space relationships. So that's another thing they do. And then finally, they record and display data. So the observations that they take, they record those, and sometimes they display them in like tables or graphs, or sometimes even diagrams. So just to quickly review those are the three different groups of skills that scientists can use. So there's everyday skills, investigation skills, and math and science skills.